Okay, so here's one of the biggest questions in all of human history. When did people first arrive in the Americas? For decades, we thought we had it all figured out. I mean, it was this neat, tidy story. But as we're about to find out, that whole story has been completely blown apart. And what's left is something way deeper, way more complex, and honestly, a lot more mysterious.
So, for most of the 20th century, the answer was the Clovis First theory. This was the bedrock, the story you probably learned in history class, right? It was all about the Clovis people, named for these really unique, distinctive stone spear points they made. They were seen as the trailblazers, the first ones here. The picture was pretty clear. They walked from Siberia, followed massive animals like mammoths across the Bering Land Bridge, slipped through this narrow, ice-free corridor in Canada, and then boom, they spread like wildfire across 2 continents. And that simple picture, it held up for about 50 years. But then, you know how science works. New discoveries started to poke holes in the theory. At first, they were just small cracks. Then the cracks got bigger. And then, one single, totally radical find in California suggested a timeline so incredibly ancient, it threatened to rewrite everything. I'm not just talking about American history. We're talking about the story of global human migration.
Let's go to 1992. It's a routine highway construction project near San Diego. Paleontologists are on site, and they stumble onto something that would challenge absolutely everything. And you can just feel the confusion and shock in this quote from the team on the ground. They're looking at mastodon bones that are smashed up in these really specific, strange ways. And right next to them are these big, heavy stones that clearly don't belong there. It looked for all the world like a place where ancient people had butchered an animal. The only problem, the dirt layer they found it in was way, way too old. So after decades of careful analysis, we're talking years and years of work using a sophisticated dating method directly on the bones, the science team finally published their findings. And the age they came up with for the site, the Cerutti Mastodon site, was 130,000 years. Let that sink in. This wasn't just pushing the timeline back anymore. This was launching it into a completely different geological era, a time when most scientists think Homo sapiens hadn't even left Africa yet.
Now, as you can imagine, this claim is still one of the biggest, most heated controversies in modern archaeology. The research team, they point to what they see as compelling evidence. Those mastodon bones show fractures like they were broken when they were fresh. The big stones look like hammers and anvils, and everything is clustered together in what look like work zones. But the skepticism from the wider scientific community is intense. Critics say, look, there are no actual human fossils here. There are no typical stone tools, no flakes. They also argue that the dating method used on bone can be unreliable, and they suggest that maybe powerful natural forces, like a crazy flash flood or something, could have done similar damage.
So, where does all this leave us? Well, one thing's for sure. That simple, elegant story about the Clovis people being first, it's gone. Forever. And what's replaced it is a much more fascinating, much messier, and definitely unresolved scientific puzzle. This really gives you a good snapshot of where things stand today. That big chunk, that's the idea of pre-Clovis people. It's now pretty much accepted that people were here somewhere in that 14,000 to 24,000 year ago window. The coastal migration theory, that's a leading contender for how they managed to get here. The Clovis people are still a really important part of the story, but they're seen as a later chapter, not the first one. And then you have that small slice, the really wild debated claims like the Cerutti Mastodon site. If that one ever gets proven, well, we'd have to rethink everything all over again. You know, the most exciting part of all this is that the story is far from over. We've gone from thinking it was a short story with a simple plot to realizing it's an epic novel with tons of chapters still being written. Every new dig could uncover that one clue, another footprint, another tool, another broken bone, that completely changes the narrative again. It's this incredible human journey that's still unfolding. And it leaves us with the biggest question of all: what are we going to find next?